Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indie Comics Explained. And yet again, I brought another fantastic guest. Before we get to him, please hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, let everybody know we're here. Let everybody know that we're bringing out new creators to everybody. I mean, even though they're not new, but they're new to me, so they're hopefully new to you. And if you want, you can go check out my Indiegogo, currently going out for the Oswald Chronicles. And these 3 books are currently up there, so you can go check that out. It's all in the show notes. And without further ado, let's bring on our esteemed guest, Mr. Joel Rodriguez. How you doing, Joel?
Hey, doing pretty good, JD. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. So, Joel, you're a writer, a graphic designer, a letterer, right? So you wear a lot of hats. Well.
Yeah. Yes.
You wear a lot of hats in this industry, so we're gonna have some good stuff to go through, man. So, let's start with the writing part of it. What got you like? All right, I like this question. I know a lot of people ask it, but I do like this question. Why? Like, what was that first book that you read, a comic book that you read, or even a novel that sang to you that you said, yeah, this is something I want to do?
Oh, easy. That was Spawn #1.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yep. I'm a huge fan of McFarlane and Spawn in general, just watching McFarlane's career. Now, Spawn #1, I'm aging myself or de-aging myself, whatever the term is, but Spawn #1 actually came out a month before I was born. So I was reading it after the image boom and everything had already happened. So for me, it was history from the time that I was born. Actually, I think it was a year before. Anyway, so I was catching up on everything, and I've loved comics ever since I was a kid. I knew I wanted to do something in comics. I didn't know what. When I first started, I was primarily a writer, and I didn't know that I wanted a career in comics until I read Spawn #1. I bought it when I was probably younger than I should have for the subject matter of the book. Right. But that was the first time I actually looked at the creator credits and was like, someone actually made this. This is awesome. It's dark. It's right up my alley. I want to do this. So fast forward quite a few years. I actually ended up, I spent part of my time, I can actually transition really quick because the studio that I started when I got into the industry is Metal Ninja Studios. And everyone asks, well, where'd that name come from, Metal Ninja Studios? Well, it actually pays homage to the different stages of my life, because when I started, I knew that I wanted to do something creative. So I started school as a guitar musician, going for guitar performance. Did that for a couple of years, realized that it was a passion of mine, but it wasn't there. So I ended up going to business, and then another passion that I had quite a few years later was obstacle course racing and American Ninja Warrior training. Oh, cool. I never made it to the show, but I love doing obstacle course races and things like that. So metal for guitar, ninja for that, and then the next stage was the studio, so the comics themselves. Right. And all of that transition happened while trying to figure out what I was going to do. I stopped doing guitar, went to get a business degree, actually got a degree in finance, and a couple of years ago decided, you know what, I think it's time. So I was actually sitting at my job at a credit union, and I'm trying to focus on work. And I'm just thinking about the song "A Friend in Me" is going through my head, because I decided that I was trying to, get into writing. Should I do it? Blah, 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 blah. Now, I had written on and off over the years, but I wasn't 100% set on I'm going to be a comic book writer, but I wanted to at least try it. That was my thing. I was going to try it. If I didn't like it, I'd move on to something else. So I'm sitting at this credit union job, and I'm thinking, okay, there's this anthology that I want to submit to. They're looking for a horror type thing, kind of like a horror parody. What can I come up with? All of a sudden, the song "A Friend in Me" starts going in. And that was the birth of A Friend in Me, the first story of the Dust County Chronicles,
Right.
which is the main series that I write. I took that story, submitted it to the anthology. They rejected it. And I decided at that point that I could either shelve it and move on to something else or see where it went. And obviously I decided to see where it went. So the Dust County Chronicles was born. And then following that, the spin-off series, Dust County Chronicles Nightfall.
Nice.
Very long-winded answer.
No, that's fine. Matter of fact, we could talk about was it the Dust County Chronicles? Well, obviously this is where you got the idea to get it, to move it forward. So I mean, What have you done to move it forward to propel it as far as like storyline? Is it a continuous story or is it a bunch of short stories? What's going on there?
So that's actually the fun part about that series, just from a writing perspective, because it started off as a collection of short stories. I pitched it as a mini anthology because the first issue was 24 pages and it was 4 short stories, seemingly disconnected. The only thing connecting them was something that came through the creation process, and that was this place, the geographic location of Dust County. Completely fictional. People have asked, is there a Dust County? No, there isn't. But that was the only thing connecting them. So then I did issue number 2, and it was another collection of short stories, all of which seemingly disconnected. But then we have the Dust County Chronicles Nightfall, which takes characters. It takes place in Dust County, and it takes characters from all of these different short stories that I've already established and brings them together for a 3-issue miniseries. So it started out as just disconnected short stories, but as everything progressed, it became more fluid and grew together.
Right. All right, cool. Now, what is your plan for it? I mean, I know you said something about 4 issues, but are you looking to go beyond that?
As of right now, the plan is to finish out the Nightfall miniseries, which is issue number 2 of which is currently in progress. The artist, Roman, is drawing it. As we discussed a little bit off stream, the writing duties don't end with the writing. There's also the financial responsibility. And my wife and I are currently expecting within the next month or so. So my financial responsibilities have shifted a bit. Right. As such, when I run Kickstarters, because all of the issues thus far, there have been 3 of them, they've been successfully funded on Kickstarter.
Nice.
And when I run the Kickstarters, I don't like to hit launch until the book is done. That way I can have a quick turnaround time. My backers are never waiting on my books. Something that I pride myself on, but because of that, the Kickstarter for this next issue has been delayed because I have to manage my finances a bit more, so I can't pay for all of the art up front like I did before. So now it's just spreading out. It's still in progress. There are going to be 3 issues for the current miniseries, and then after that, we'll see what happens.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, trust me, I've been there. I know how it feels. I've have 1,200 pages in the bank on the Oswald Chronicles, which I paid for. And I know exactly how you feel. I feel you paid. Yeah. I could have probably bought a couple of cars by this point.
Yep.
And nice ones.
But we got stories to tell. I mean, we got priorities.
This is true. I'm very happy I live in New York City. I don't need a car.
There you go. You go.
So your process as far as writing, I mean, all right. So, there's a couple of styles of writing. There's the Marvel style. There's a DC style. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer a looser script or you prefer a tighter script? Page 1, scene 1, that sort of thing.
I tend to do it. It depends on the artist that I'm working with. I've done a couple of anthologies with some different artists, but the process that I have, particularly with Roman, because I've been working with him the longest, he was the first artist that I started working with, and we're still working together. But the process that I have with him is more of a solid, detailed script with room for adjustment. So when he's going through the script, by now he knows, okay, hey, I think it'd be better if we took this panel, moved it over here, did these couple of swaps just from a visual perspective. And we have that bit of collaboration back and forth. So I give him more of a solidified script, broken down page, panel, etc. But that tends to shift throughout the collaborative process.
Right. All right. That's cool. Now, are you a pantser or a plotter? Do you like to just...
Oh,
you know what I mean, right? Okay.
Yeah, I got you. For the most part, I'm a pantser. I'll get a basic idea of where I want to go. And it's actually kind of funny because just looking at the Dust County Chronicles, the first 2 issues, which were the short stories, every single one of those short stories was written with a different process. So one of them, I specifically remember I plotted the entire thing out. I was a plotter. Right. The next one, I tried to plot it out again, but I kept getting stuck and I couldn't figure it out. So then I just scrapped the entire plot and pantsed my way through it, and it ended up amazing. Another one, I started with just the dialogue and filled in the there's one in the second issue where all of the dialogue, the captions, everything that the reader reads is a concise poem. So everything forms a cohesive poem. That I had to write the poem before I could write the script. So I started with the dialogue and then I did the panel breakdowns. Then there was another story where I did the panel breakdowns and then came back afterwards and did the script or did the dialogue. So just in those 8 short stories, I have used probably every different variation on writing process.
Right. That's cool. That's cool. I've over the long period of time that I've been doing this, I've been working in comics or producing independent comics probably as long as you've been alive. My first, I think I printed my first book in '92.
Yeah.
Now, mind you,
I'm not going to say that you're, not wrong,
old,
but,
I'm old. It's okay. What is it? But I started the process in about 87. So
the term is seasoned.
Oh, yeah, it's old. It's okay. I'm not ashamed of it. It's cool. Only those people who are ashamed of being old have to say things like that,
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not ashamed of being old. It's okay. It happens. If you're lucky, if most people are lucky, you'll get to my age and beyond.
There you go. It happens to everyone, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Too many people get taken too early.
Yep.
So now, doing your Kickstarters, right? What was like the biggest lesson you learned from like the first Kickstarter to that second Kickstarter? You were like, because I know that first one could be harrowing.
Yeah.
It gets a little easier as you go along because you pick up knowledge and you pick up your fans, and that sort of thing. So it gets a little bit easier. It's never that easy, but So what was that big lesson you learned between 1 and 2?
The biggest thing there was making sure that as much as I wanted to pick up new fans and everything, I still had to figure out the best way to reward the returning backers and my returning fans, offer them something new, while at the same time not making it so exclusive to where I'm alienating the new fans. It's figuring out how to form that balance between the two. Right. And my mailing list was a big part of that. I would say that was probably what I learned making that transition, was how to use my mailing list as a tool to bring everyone in. Because with my first one, I was still building the mailing list, trying to build an audience from scratch, not really fine-tuning and figuring out the best way to talk to new and old people at the same time, new and old backers. So that's probably the biggest thing that I learned was using that tool to bring everyone together to point them all at the same time to the Kickstarter.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Um, here's no, I'll ask you that question later. Now now it's very obvious that you work at Scout Comics.
I don't know what gave that away.
Exactly.
You work for Scout.
Right, which is fantastic. Now we were talking, just off air. You do two things there, right? You're a letterer and you're a graphic designer,
Yeah.
and both are real important. Now, let's start with graphic design. I mean, what
Okay.
exactly do you do? Because my wife is my graphic designer, so I give her stuff and I walk away. And she shows it to me at the end, and she's like, "Do you like this?" And if I don't, I can say I don't, but it's rare. So I like to not be smothered in my sleep. So
Luckily, my bosses would have to drive pretty far to smother me in my sleep, so I've got a little bit of leeway there.
there you go.
So my job with Scout is kind of twofold. Like you said, there's the lettering stuff. With the lettering, I'm not actually working for Scout. I'm working for the creators, and the book is being published by Scout. So that's more freelance work from the creator side. When it comes to my actual job with Scout as the head of design, is I'm responsible for putting together about 90% of the books that go to press from Scout proper. We have our imprints, Black Caravan, Scoot, and a couple more coming down the line. But those imprints handle the majority of their own production. But when it comes to books coming out from Scout Comics, I put together about 90% of the titles, get them ready for press, do the interior cover design, do the trade paperback design, all of that stuff that's involved with getting a book ready for press. I also do miscellaneous tasks such as designing collector's boxes. If you've been following Scout HQ, James Hake has released a couple of boxes that we're going to be doing, such as Solar Flare and Headless. So those boxes I do the design work for, and just anything involving graphic design or a visual element, they come to me to either lead the team on or to handle myself when it comes to the design work.
All right, cool. Now, as far as lettering goes, now what is the process you go through for that? Like, obviously, you must get like scripts and they're like 10,000 different formats. So, I mean, how do you get your pages? You get like a lump package? Do you get like one at a time? I mean, how are you dealing with that?
It really depends on the creator and their schedule. I try to be as accommodating as possible when dealing with creators and the deadlines that they have, because they have their own goals for their projects. I'm just there to help them achieve their goals. Right. So sometimes I will get a script that has complete breakdown, pretty much like you would give an artist. Sometimes I'll get what's called a letterer's script, which is the same breakdown but no panel descriptions, just the dialogue and the captions. Other times I'll be relettering a book and I'll have an artist, or I'll have a writer who wants me to help type up a script because all they have was this lettered version. That's more common with an up-and-coming artist who wanted to letter their own stuff, decided that it'd be better to have more beneficial to have a professional do it. So when it comes to scripts, I've seen a wide variety of different options. So from my perspective as a letterer, it's just doing everything that I can to be flexible and work with them with whatever they give me.
Gotcha. So when you're lettering, right, you're a writer, right? And I know I letter my own books, and we discussed this earlier. So I know I'm a noodler. I go in there, I like to fix up my stuff. Does it ever, I know you're reading the scripts as you're going and you're lettering. Have you
Yeah.
ever gotten to a point where you're just like, man, that line could just be just a smidge better if I just did this, this, and this to it?
Well, that's a tricky spot because with my own stuff, yes, definitely, hands down. But I've had to transition very heavily from the writing side to focus on graphic design and focus on my lettering. Really, when I'm working on other people's things, yes, I'm reading it and I'm extremely honored in the fact that as the letterer, 90% of the times, I'm the first one that gets to read the completed book. I'm the first one to see it with the lettering because I'm the one doing the lettering, but that's the marriage of art and story. So I'm honored to have that. As such, I have so many different things that I have to focus on that if I spend all of my time also analyzing the writing styles of my clients, I would never get anything accomplished. So I'm reading it, but kind of half reading it because I'm also focused on making sure that my bubble placement is good and my tails are all pointing in the right direction, etc.
Gotcha. Now, what advice would you give to anyone who wanted to be a letterer? Like, what's the key thing that you see? Like, all right, anyone who's going to work with a letterer, what would be the advice you would give them, as far as like maybe like a script prep that would make it easier on you?
Word format. The biggest thing with being a letterer is we want to type as little as possible.
Right.
And it sounds lazy, but it's not. It's the main reason that we want to type as little as possible is because if we have to type at all, that's one more potential spot for errors. So the way that it usually goes through the editorial process is the editor will look at the script and then they'll look at it again after lettering. So if I have to type things as a letterer, that's one extra choke point where the editor could catch something or we'll have to do a full review to make sure that I didn't mess something up. So the best way to resolve that would be prep the scripts in a Word format or a highlightable PDF format, something where I'll be able to copy and paste it. Have clear, concise dialogue location so I don't have to go hunting and searching. And then that way it's a smooth transition for me. So when it gets to the editor after me, they're more so reviewing to make sure that they didn't miss anything from the script phase. And then also checking my work to make sure that I didn't miss something.
Gotcha. Now, on average, how many pages are you lettering a day?
That's kind of a tricky question since I'm bouncing back and forth between lettering projects and Scout. So I would say I usually try and get about 3 to 4 hours worth of lettering in a day. And the number of pages really depends on the script. If it's a complicated script, that could be 2 to 3 pages. If it's a less complicated script, I could get 10 to 12 pages done in that time. So it varies from project to project.
Gotcha. Now, what part of the process do you most enjoy in creating comics? And it could be any one of these subjects.
It's going to sound super cheesy, but turning in the final product. Because I love hearing back from the creators how much they enjoy what I did. Not from an ego perspective, but more so it was only a few years ago that I was the new guy in comics trying to figure out how to make my comics look good. So now being able to take what I've learned over the past couple of years and help other creators achieve the same thing, that's probably my favorite part.
All right, cool. Now, what part of the process you most dread?
Wordy dialogue.
Now, from yourself or from creators. As a letterer or as a writer or both?
Oh, as a writer, I do not write wordy dialogue because I know that I have to letter it. So I would shoot myself if I wrote wordy dialogue.
Right.
As a letterer, it's not so much. It's wordy in relation to the panel size. There a couple of times that I can think of where I'll have to fit 100 words in a panel that can maybe fit 20. So it's a fun challenge,
Right.
but it's not a very. It's a challenge, but not a very fun challenge.
Yeah.
I'm happy when it's done, but I hate it when I'm doing
it. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm a very wordy writer. So yeah, my artist already knows to like leave me space. So like, oh, here he goes again. You know?
Yeah, that's the fun part about being a letterer is finding the best ways to balance that out, because the writers, of course, want to get the words in at the same time the artist wants to showcase their skills. So it's finding the way to balance the two without one overpowering the other. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the actual process is every page is like a puzzle, trying to figure out where things need to go so that everyone can shine.
Gotcha. No, definitely. All right. Let's roll it back a little bit to Dust County Chronicles. So obviously you wrote this, you created it. What attracted you to the horror aspect of the project?
I've always been a big fan of horror. Ever since I was little, I was raised on Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Aliens, all of these different horror movies.
Right.
So when I first started writing Dust County, I wanted to take something that people knew and loved. Like my original pitch was, what if Toy Story was a slasher? And the original Dust County series took stories that people knew, loved, and felt nostalgic towards, and it added in an element from certain horror movies to essentially take a tale and flip it on its head. What if Peter Pan required a sacrifice to enter Neverland? That was another story from issue number 1. So just taking my love from horror movies that I had growing up and twisting tales that most people feel happy for and figuring out a fun way to incorporate those without it just becoming an overall depressed fest.
Right. Gotcha. What do you mean they all died again? You know?
Spoiler alert, everyone dies all the time.
Exactly. Every time. It's gotta just happen. So now as far as your artist, I mean, you know, where did you find your artist? Where did you first come across this person?
I first came across Roman via a Facebook group called Connecting Comic Book Writers and Artists. I was completely new to the game, had no idea how to find an artist. So I went to Facebook. I started looking for groups. I found this one, made a post, was extremely surprised when a bunch of people commented. So I went through all of the art styles, came across Roman, loved his submission the most, and I'm extremely grateful for that group because he lives in Costa Rica, so the chances of us actually meeting in person, very slim.
Yeah, I found most of my artists on DeviantArt.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, my artist is in Chile, right?
Yeah.
And I'm working with a couple other guys in Indonesia. So yeah, I was like Indonesia. I was like, okay.
I think because I've worked with quite a few different artists, working with another one in England. I think I've only worked with one artist in the US.
Well,
yeah. And he was an old friend of mine that I actually knew from my home back up in Michigan. So
right. Well, back in the 90s, we only had ourselves because we had no internet. So All of my artists were from the US, but they were all like high school friends. Or they were
Yeah.
all high school friends. I was kind of like the guy who came in, and one of their classmates who was a friend of mine, he said, because it was a school of visual arts. No,
Okay.
School of Art and Design in Manhattan, and he basically brought me all the best artists from his class. Like, so he was just like, I know this guy. He's putting together a comic company. You want to come talk to him? And there were like 9
Dude,
people.
you tapped into the source. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's funny. Like they all went on to do art. Like my wife, I met her through there. She's an artist. She draws a comic we do called Tall Tales. So we've been together forever. One guy went on to do graphics, online graphics for TV shows, and he's doing 3D modeling and that sort of thing in Hollywood. He did that for a while. Another guy went on to go do medical illustration. So he draws bones all day. Yeah, he draws bones all day and ligaments.
I mean, some people make comics, some people draw bones. I mean,
exactly. It was really funny. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys went on to go do other things, but in art, was just other places. You know, they were like, "Yeah, we got comics out of our system."
Yeah, yeah.
Except me and my wife. So we're the only ones, and probably Matthew, who is doing something somewhere. I just haven't spoken to him in a couple of years. But yeah, but so here's something I found interesting. You live in Orlando.
Yes.
And I told you this earlier. You're lucky human, right?
I mean, I can't deny it. I chose to live here, so.
Right. Okay. Did you choose the location? I mean, did you choose that location? Because you told me how far you were from the parks. Did you choose that location for that reason?
Yes and no. Part of it was my wife and I actually moved down with her parents. Her parents moved down, and then a year or two later, we moved down after we were graduating college up in Michigan. So after we graduated, we relocated as well. Her and her family had been coming to the parks almost annually her entire life. My first trip down to the parks, my first time at the parks was 2011. And they moved down, and her dad decided, okay, we're going to live next to the parks. And then when we came down, we could have gone anywhere, but we went right next to the parks.
Gotcha.
So there was a bit of parental influence on her side, but it was more so mostly our decision.
Right. No, I got you. I mean, it's funny. I would imagine you have a lot of friends that have never been to the parks.
Yeah, especially back up in Michigan. Yep.
Right. I have a lot of friends as well. They've never been there. And I always tell them, I say, you should take at least one trip. Right. And just remember that everything that you see in those parks is deliberate and done by an artist.
Yep.
You know, those parks, it is a special type of artistry. You know, it says, you know, you go in there, that's all art. You know, there's none of it that's not, you know, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie to you. They're selling you stuff every second you're there. But you know, it is all art. It is fantastic, and it's beautiful. You know, and I'm from New York, and you know, when you see things like Main Street, I don't have anything like that back here. You know, I don't have anything close.
It's one of my favorite things. Just as a graphic designer, one thing that I focus on a lot is typography and color. So just seeing how color interacts with different things and how people use different fonts to get different effects. So one of my favorite things to do is just go walk around the parks, and really anywhere, but mainly the parks, because like you said, it's all deliberate. So I like walking around the parks and just looking at things and seeing what types of reactions they get from these deliberate choices. And yeah, it is amazing and really fun to watch.
I try to tell people I love Disney, but I really enjoy the Harry Potter thing.
Yep. They've done a great job with Harry Potter, and I mean, I can't argue with Galaxy's Edge.
Right. Galaxy's Edge looks good. But Harry Potter for me was the first time I ever walked into a space, and it was just like, wow, this is free.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
it's very strange because you feel like you're like, oh shit, this is like really cool.
I think that was probably the first time that I got that feeling too, because when you go around the parks, up until then, it was more so just you go from one ride to the other, and they have each one kind of themed in an area.
Mm-hmm.
But Harry Potter was the first one, at least at Universal, where you had to walk through this little hidden alcove, and then once you got there, literally everything was Harry Potter from the floor. You couldn't see the rest of the park.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
And I'm sure I know you've been on the train that takes you from one park to the other park. We should be getting endorsed right now.
We really should. We started talking about comics, and now we're telling people to go to Universal.
Exactly.
I mean, but I mean, it's all pretty much the same thing. The parks, I mean, they do it on a much bigger scale, but we're all just trying to entertain people. That's what we do.
Of course. So, I mean, now working for how did you get involved with Scout? Or did they reach out to you? Did you meet them at a show?
It was a little bit of both. I credit a lot of it to my business partner for another company that I own called Brink of Reality Productions. He's also the co-publisher of Scout currently, David Byrne. I actually met David at a show before either of us were involved with Scout. Mm-hmm. And it was, I think I was promoting the first Dust County. Mm-hmm. And we just happened to be sitting next to each other at a show. We started talking, became really good friends after that. For a period of time, we even worked day jobs together. Cool. That day job, I just recently left that job to focus heavily on the graphic design stuff. But for quite a while, we were pretty much doing everything together aside from going home. Right. But I met David, started talking to him. While I'm talking to him and just getting familiar with people, I'm also trying to meet people from Scout because David knew people from Scout at the time. He was a bit further ahead than me when it came to the networking thing because he's been in the game longer than I have. So I met James Hake and Jim Pruitt at separate shows, and I was actually trying to pitch them Dust County. And naturally, Dust County is not at Scout, so that's where that pitch went. But after that pitch, I was able to just strike up a conversation, start talking with those two in particular, and became really good friends with James, good friends with Jim as well. And then David got brought in as a production designer. And they were looking to expand the team, and they asked David if he knew any other designers. He recommended me. So I got brought in when they did their first real expansion of the design team. And then things just kind of progressed from that point on. And when they kept expanding, because we just keep getting bigger and bigger as time progresses, then things just naturally progressed until I got to where I am now.
All right, cool. All right, well, we've been at this for a little while, and we're close to the end. But we're not there just yet. All right, so I have a few more questions for you. But
sounds good.
Before we go on, please let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
Easiest place to find me would be Facebook at facebook.com/Metal Ninja Studios. You can also find me, the website is metalninjastudios.com. I also have an Instagram and Twitter, but I'm horrible at social media. You'll go to Metal Ninja Studios and see that I probably haven't posted in months. Right. I admittedly am horrible at it. I keep forgetting to post, and so if you want to actually get a hold of me, through Facebook is probably the best way to go, though.
All right, cool. Second question is, all right, is there anything you wanted to discuss, or maybe a question you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask you that you want to mention now?
Not that I can think of. You've been pretty thorough. I mean, I've had to come up with some stuff.
Gotcha. All right, cool. So I got a couple of goofy questions for you. So
All right.
we'll start. These are my two bases. I always ask these two questions.
Let her rip.
One, if you had a choice of any artist, living or dead, who could do a cover for you for one of your books, who would you pick?
Ooh, can it be an art team?
Sure.
Capullo and McFarlane.
Okay. Cool.
I love the work that those two do together. So seeing them back together on Spawn currently, I'm a huge fan.
Mm-hmm. All right. Cool. The next question is, if you were given, like, if you got the golden ticket, you were called up to the big guys, and it could be any company. It doesn't just have to be Marvel or DC. It could be any Dark Horse, any of the companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, Joel, pick whomever you want to pick. Who do you want to work on?
Ooh. All right, now that's a hard one. I mean, my go-to would probably be working on Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a feeling that I would mess it up. So I don't want to mess up Spawn.
Gotcha.
Now, if they called me and said, hey, do you want to letter Spawn for an issue? Then yes, I'm 100% in for that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd say probably Spawn.
Okay.
I'm very predictable when it comes to my favorite comics.
I got you. You don't want to do any irreparable damage.
Pretty much. I don't want to be the guy that they're like, look, I love this thing, and then you came in, and now I hate it. I don't want to be that guy. That's why I'm a letterer. I mean...
All right. Fair enough. All right. So now I got some comparatives.
Okay.
Some of them will come with why, right? But I'll softball you in the beginning, right? So I'll give you my two softball questions.
All right. What you got?
Captain America or Batman?
Oh, Batman.
Okay. Godzilla or Gamera?
Godzilla.
Okay. Byrne or Perez?
Let's go Perez.
Okay. Fair enough. Spock or Data?
Spock.
Okay. Cool. Print or digital?
I think they both have their uses, but as a collector, I gotta go print. I mean, I love having that tangible product.
Gotcha. Stan Lee or Jack Kirby?
Nah, I'm a writer. You know I'm gonna go Stan.
Fair enough. Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
Ooh, that hurts. I think I gotta go Star Wars.
Why?
I mean, they're very, very, very close. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi, but I was introduced to Star Wars first.
Okay. Fair enough. Harry Potter or Narnia?
Harry Potter.
Okay. I mean, it was unfair. We already talked about the parks.
No, don't get me wrong. I do like Narnia, but I have more exposure to Harry Potter. I mean,
right. Yeah, no, I got you. Bernie Wrightson or Barry Windsor Smith?
Let's go Smith.
Okay, fair enough. The Rock or Stone Cold?
Ooh. I'm gonna go The Rock.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I always find that one a little tough because when I was younger, when I was still watching, I would have picked Stone Cold.
Yep.
But now, Dwayne Johnson is just The Rock.
It's the same thing. Like back when I used to watch, it was all Stone Cold, but now I'm like, but The Rock. I mean,
yeah. All right, we've done a few of these. So I'll ask you a couple more, and we'll wrap it up.
All right, sounds
Um,
good.
Frank Miller or Alan Moore?
Frank Miller.
Why?
I love Sin City.
Okay, okay, it's beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Choroscuro. I mean, just to the nth degree. It's just like wow. You know, I think the
Yeah.
only other person in comics who's done anything close is maybe like Tim Sale.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique beast in itself. And I
Hmm.
think that's why I like it so much.
Yeah. Pinhead or Freddy Krueger?
Freddy Krueger.
Okay. All right. I'll hit you with this last one, and then we'll call it a night.
Okay.
Walking Dead or Dawn of the Dead?
Ooh. Gotta go Dawn.
Okay.
Gotta respect the OG.
Hmm. All right. Cool. Joel, we made it to the end, man. It was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me.
One more time, let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, you can find my work and me at metalninjastudios.com and facebook.com/Metal Ninja Studios.
Hmm. Just to let you know, so I don't know if you know. I don't know if you know Wendy.
Hey, I do know Wendy. Hey, Wendy.
There you go. And she wrote, "It's Daddy Brain."
Yeah, it is 100%.
Just thought you might want to see that. All right, so thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Joel, for coming on, man. This was fantastic. The invitation is always open. If you ever want to come back on, if you got a new project or whatever, you got your new Kickstarter going on, congratulations with the baby.
Thank you.
And yeah, like I said, anytime you want to come on, anytime you want to promote anything, just let me know. Have you on anytime, bro. Thank
I
you so much.
appreciate that, JD. It was a blast. I'm definitely looking forward to doing it again.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. I'll be talking to you all soon. Hold on, Joe.